Since 2011, Venerable Zisheng has been a contributing columnist for Buddhist Store International, and we're very lucky to have him here for an exclusive interview. And thank you very much, Malcolm, for being able to join us. And we've known each other for a long time, and we've also been very keen on promoting Pure Land Buddhism for an English reading or, international audience, so, whatever way you want to put it. So tell me, what are the most common misunderstandings or misconceptions that you encounter when preaching and teaching Pure Land Buddhism?
First of all, I think many of the misconceptions come from the lack of literature available in English, good literature aimed at lay people. There's some excellent literature that has been written, done for the centuries by masters, and I think mainly aimed at monks and nuns, and very difficult for the English-speaking audience to grasp hold of those concepts, very difficult concepts to understand, and also the language in which those concepts are couched, also very, very difficult to get one's head round. So I think many of the misconceptions come from that. And I think some of the misconceptions are that Amitabha Buddha is a savior Buddha in the same sense as Jesus Christ.
And Amitabha Buddha is the central Buddha of Pure Land Buddhism.
Amitabha Buddha is the central Buddha, based on the teachings of a Buddha from, basically we have mainly three central sutras, the Infinite Life Sutra, the Amitabha Sutra, and the Meditation Sutra. And so the Buddha teaches and introduces Amitabha Buddha, particularly in the Meditation Sutra, where he introduces Amitabha Buddha to Queen Vaidehi. It's a beautiful sutra.
And you've mentioned the misunderstandings of centering around a lack of understanding of the concepts. What are these concepts? Because we have faith, vows, and practice in Pure Land Buddhism. And for most who are acquainted with the tradition, we actually emphasize that Pure Land Buddhism is a so-called easy path, or perhaps a simple path, a straightforward path which is universal. It is open to absolutely every single sentient being that was ever born, is alive, or will ever be born. So why the confusion? Shouldn't it be, simple or straightforward?
I think, Raymond, to call something simple or easy, I think we can be a little misguided there sometimes too, because I don't think we can say any one path is either simple or easy. There's a dualist notion. Zen could be easy, could be difficult. So I think my thinking on Pure Land is that it is a very, very easy practice. It's a very straightforward practice. It's many ways of practicing can be used very simply in our daily life. That's for sure. However, I think it's extremely difficult to understand, and it's back to those concepts again. And you mentioned faith, the tripod of Pure Land practice on faith, vows, and practice. And I think that word faith, for example, has connotations for those coming from a Christian background or from another religious or spiritual background. One of, oh, here we go again, I need to have faith. However, faith from our Buddhist understanding is very different from other spiritualities in that it is not a blind faith. It's not something that we simply go into Pure Land and say, oh, I believe. In fact, I often tell my students it's not an issue of me making you believe anything, or for you to say, oh, now I believe, I have faith. Because I do not think that's what Shakyamuni, for the Shakyamuni Buddha, would want of us. Faith is a tested faith. It is taking the principles. Of course, one must take the principles of practice with some faith that they are going to affect our life. An open mind. That's a good expression.
Mind and humble heart.
Yes, exactly. So open mind and humble heart, and then to put those practices into practice, and then to find results from those. And I think as we practice our Buddhist life, we begin to find results even very early in our Buddhist journey. And so those results then give us confidence. And you say, oh, this is good. I'm feeling more relaxed, or I'm feeling more peaceful. So that confidence then builds in more motivation. And more motivation increases our discipline. Yeah. And discipline increases our character. And character then leads to our destiny, our outcome, creating a karmic path, which is a path which we say, or the language we use in Pure Land Buddhism, leads us to that pure consciousness of Pure Land.
And in your mind, personally, on your individual, journey, what has been the most beautiful thing about Pure Land practice for you?
I think it's ease and availability. One can recite the Buddha's name anywhere. And I often like to relate a story of a taxi driver in Shanghai, when I caught a taxi one afternoon, and I jumped in, and he smiled at me, and he looked, and he said to me in Chinese, he said, Shanghai is the most spiritual city in China. I didn't quite know how to respond to that, but I just kept looking at him, and out of the corner of his eye, because he was concentrating on the traffic, I could see this little cheeky grin, and he was holding in his hand an yanzhu, and he said, and the traffic came to a stop because very heavy traffic, and he began to recite, Om Mito Fu. Om Mito Fu, Om Mito.
And he was using those prayer beads too.
He was using the prayer beads. And he said, see, very spiritual. I have a lot of time for practice. So, it is practical. It is a very practical thing. One can do it on the train. One can be mindful of a Buddha anywhere. It's a very simple practice.
And the practice of this Buddha name, reciting this Buddha name, what is its main purpose? I mean, for those who are unacquainted with Pure Land Buddhism, they might wonder, why do we invoke the name of Amitabha Buddha? And what is its significance? And of course, it's great, but a lot of people might not understand.
It's a very deep question, Raymond. Very deep question. The invoking of the name of Amitabha Buddha, of course, it raises another question, and that is, well, who was Amitabha Buddha? And I think many of my students ask me this in retreats. Who was Amitabha Buddha? When did he live? What period of history? And then sometimes to give the traditional answer of being transhistorical, a transhistorical Buddha is not sufficient. They want to know who he is. Where did he live? The concrete Amitabha Buddha. And I'm answering your question, but I'm going around a long way.
No, that's fine.
And I like to answer that question by asking another question. Who are you? Who are you? And I think it's a question that many of us need to ask in our Buddhist journey. Who are we? What are we here for? What is our main purpose? And if we can plumb the depths of that question, then we begin to meet Amida in our lives. And I think we would be surprised to find that you are Amida, Raymond. I am Amida. Amida nature is each and every one of us. And so when we can grasp that concept, then we're tapping into the mind of all Buddha, all nature. It's the same. It is the same as Chan. Yes. Except our Chan brothers will say to us that perhaps the Pure Land is an easier path because it has this concept of other power.
Yes, other power is also very important, isn't it?
Power, and that's another concept which is very, very difficult to grasp, because as we begin our Buddhist path, we often understand that we need to rely on our own strength, take responsibility. So who again is this Amida that I should have faith in him, I and him? There's a dual notion there. And so it's when we understand that attaining awakening and enlightenment, we need to dismantle the I, myself, me, self, the what's the ego self. Then even our Chan brothers, I think, can agree with us that when we suddenly have that moment of an awakening, it's very easy to fall into the trap of, oh, I did it. Oh, and then we've lost it.
Yes. So close and yet so far.
Yeah. However, when we have an understanding that it is almost in iconographic language, the Amida, the concept of pure consciousness, our desire, our inner will to have pure consciousness, a pure mind, which is Amida, then it is that which draws us. I like to use the analogy of a boat crossing a river. And we can cross the river to the other side of awakening and enlightenment in many different vehicles. But the currents are very strong. The currents are extremely strong. Currents, the cross currents and counter currents of today's societies. So we could choose to swim. And I think Chan is a very good training school for swimming. It gives us a lot of strength to swim. But the currents are very strong. And so we may choose to take another vehicle across to the other side. And so that vehicle for us is Amitabha Buddha, the pure consciousness of Amitabha Buddha that is able to bring us to the other side.
And so the practice of invoking his name is the sort of relationship, if you will, that we are able to have with our pure consciousness and get connected. Yes. You know, in the most straightforward manner.
Yes.
Am I understanding this correctly?
That is correct. That is correct. For rebirth into Pure Land. So our main goal is to cease the cycle of birth, death, which of course is suffering. And so when we are able to be reborn into pure consciousness or Pure Land, however in our levels of understanding we understand that to be, then we've attained that goal. And the chanting of Amitabha Buddha enables us to reach the other side, enables us to enter pure consciousness.
And I get this question all the time, and I'm sure, Venerable, you do too. People have asked me, and many other masters, is the Pure Land like a literal heaven, or do I actually go there when I die? And so this is related to who Amitabha Buddha is, and this is also related to how we understand the Pure Land, I think. So what would be your take on it?
And the Buddha spoke to Queen Vaidehi. I think she probably had the same questions in her own mind in the Meditation Sutra, and he referred to her as being a worldly person. So we have worldly understandings of highly spiritual language, highly spiritual notions. How was the Buddha going to express something which is highly spiritual, except in the language that we can only partially understand, and yet these notions go beyond all understanding. And so to, I think, speak of Pure Land as being a place is both correct and incorrect at the same time. And as it is to speak of it not being a place is both correct and incorrect. From one perspective, it can be a place. It was interesting. I was teaching a workshop last year, and we got onto this very question about Pure Land being is it like a heaven, or heavens as described in other spiritualities, and I began to speak about how the Buddha described the Pure Land with a tad, I must admit, a little tad. I was going to use the word embarrassment, but perhaps that was it, because I'm thinking, I'm not sure these guys are really sort of capturing this. And there was one man in the group who was a physicist from Beijing, and he was looking at me very, 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 very carefully, and I thought, oh, he's going to tear me apart any moment. However, he explained that even so, there are many, many worlds that we do not understand on the edges of our universe. We've only begun to tap into the edges of our universe. Who knows? But I don't think that's the That's the main thing. I think the understanding of Pure Land is a consciousness. We enter into the life stream of all consciousness when we pass from this mortal frame, which we all will at one stage anyway. And then if we are able to have a pure mind, a pure consciousness at that last moment, then there is no difference between that and entering into the Pure Land.
Speaking of this sort of layers of understanding, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh has been in Hong Kong for a few days now. Just gave a big talk at the Hong Kong Coliseum last night, and he's got one of his favorite sayings is the Pure Land or the Kingdom of Heaven is here and now, and we don't have to wait until death to walk in the Pure Land. Now, the Thai is from the Vietnamese Zen tradition, and what do you make of that? You know, you've mentioned our Chan brothers. In Buddhism, in Dharma. And what would you say to this idea that the Pure Land is here and now?
Venerable Master Thich Nhat Hanh was quite correct in saying that the Buddha said to Queen Vaidehi in the Meditation Sutra, Amida Buddha is not far from you. Amida Buddha is in our presence. All is Amida Buddha. We look at the trees in the morning, the dew, the sunlight, the beauty around us. All this is Amida Buddha in our midst. All is Pure Land. All has the potentiality for Pure Land. When we have a pure thought, when we have joy in our hearts and minds, this enables the next thought to take hold of this, and it creates it in our midst. The joy is in our midst. Amida Buddha is with us right here and now. Again, we can find ourselves, I think, being tied into this concept of, but it's only going to be something, you know, when I die. And the danger, I think, in that is we can put off practice and say, well, you know, if all I need to do is recite Amida Buddha's name 10 times before I die, then I can put my feet up and relax and enjoy life now and don't have to do anything until those moments. Ha! But the Buddha does warn us very carefully that it is those who have a pure consciousness, a pure mind, and focused mind who are able to attain Pure Land in those moments. I don't know of too many people who are at the hour of their death are able to do that. So I think it behoves us now to practice right at this, you know, very now moment. And find the joy, look for the joy, and the gift of pure consciousness, Pure Land now.
Thank you very much, Venerable Amitabha.